Hi everybody and welcome to this Niche Style Academy FOMO training, which we do once a month. And this is a particularly exciting training, and it's going to be all about the lead. Now, it's not the lead as we would traditionally understand that term. In marketing terms, when we talk about the lead, we're talking about emails or contact details, getting a lead for your funnel. It's not what we're talking about today. Today, we're using the lead from the copywriting vernacular, which means the headline and the first couple of hundred, 200 to 500 words of what would have been a traditional copywritten letter. Now, of course, today, the lead definition has gone way beyond what is just copy. It's also can be the start of a video. It can be the start of a webinar series. It can be start of a webinar. It can be start of a podcast. It could be the start of any number of different media. It doesn't matter. It can be the start of a speech on stage. Any of those sorts of things. It doesn't matter. The lead is still the lead, and the way we construct the lead is exactly the same. It's identical, and so much of what we learn in the E5 system that Todd Brown teaches, and with his permission I'm teaching here today. And by the way, I should welcome all the members of Niche Style Academy who joined through the recent E5 promotion. So welcome to all of you. It's a thrill to have you here, and hopefully I can give you a new perspective, a different perspective on all of this stuff. And the goal here at the Academy is to take this theory and then make it applicable, and also make sure it's not overwhelming, to chunk it down into the little bits and pieces, the little implementation pieces, to make sure this all works for you. So very important that we do that. However, the lead and the big idea is a crucial chunk. We've already gone over the unique mechanism and the marketing thesis. If we look at our marketing timeline here, my beautiful rendition of the marketing timeline, you can see the very first thing that we deal with is the offer, where we come up with, okay, when we decide, yep, we've tested and we've understood that, yes, this is something that the market wants, we've generated leads, we've figured out that the market is responsive, all of those sorts of things. We've done all of those things. Now we're at the point where we're ready to sell something. Okay, and at that point we sort of work backwards a little bit, and the first thing that we actually work on is the offer, and we create and build around the offer. Now, the methodology that I use is a combination of the E5 offer methodology, and also I'm a big fan of Russell Brunson's stacking methodology, which he teaches in Expert Secrets. We're not going to talk about the offer today. That's for another time. And honestly, I reckon it's one of the easier parts of this whole thing. Then, what we've talked about in previous lessons when we did the unique mechanism and the marketing thesis. And the whole concept of the marketing thesis is, what do you need to, what does your client, your prospect, need to believe about the marketing thesis, which is a formula. Okay, and the marketing thesis is your unique mechanism plus the desired result of the person who's going through that funnel, so that you can convince them that the way that they can make $10,000 is, for example, to utilize the Niche Style Academy methodology, or that the way that they can catch fish is using the Hogwarts fly tying methodology. Who knows what it is? I don't know. But that's what we're looking, we look at doing when we do the marketing thesis, and that's where we want to get people. Because what's so exciting about this whole process, and why I'm such a huge fan of the E5 process, is it's all about education. You can see that 75%. We don't even talk about your product. We don't talk about the offering. We're educating people, and so they love actually consuming the material. But what we're looking at today is potentially the trickiest part of the process. And so we're looking at the big idea and the lead. Okay, and I'm going to walk you through how to create that today. I'm going to give you the steps. I'm going to show you some examples of that, different examples to the ones Todd uses, so you can get another perspective, another sort of area of feedback. And I think most importantly, and what's super exciting about the Academy, is that by teaching you the lead and by teaching you the big idea creation, we can introduce Copy Club. And what Copy Club, which I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because we've got so much to cover today in today's training, we'll cover that in a week's time, to be very specific. But what we're going to be doing in Copy Club is utilizing the copy evaluation techniques which Agora Publishing, the billion-dollar marketing, direct marketing company, uses to critique people's copy and polish people's ideas in a super positive way. It's an amazing methodology, and I can't wait to bring it to you. But we have to understand what you're going to teach today for me to be able to bring that to you. So lots of benefits to all of this. However, let's get started, and let's first of all define why this lead is so important and why the problems I think as Academy members we face when we're looking at this sort of thing. So, you know, if we look at the big problems that we have, right? First one is just standing out. The competition is intense in a lot of markets. You know, if you mention executive coaching, to take one, you talk about the concept of mental opt-out, right? People instantly have that. If you talk about weight loss, you talk about healing and various self-help methodologies. If you use one that's, I don't know, Reiki or tapping, or they all have, right, a box which features in people's minds. So the challenge for us is to create a unique mechanism, something that makes us stand out from the crowd. But then, of course, the instant thing that you say and the instant challenge is, but hang on, Ed, I'm starting on this. I've got a journey style business. Just to briefly recap, there are two types of businesses I think that you can create. There's an expert style business where you're capitalizing and leveraging your own intellectual property and expertise. Awesome type of business. That's great. But just as legitimately is a journey style business where you are taking people on a journey and you're documenting your journey and you're helping people as you're learning as well. Both are absolutely as legitimate. But if you're in a journey style business, you say, well, how do I stand out? How could I possibly come up with a unique mechanism when I'm learning all this stuff myself? Well, guess what? Today, hopefully, we will solve that particular problem. And then the next problem is, how do I stop from sounding salesy? Everything I write, the copy, when I'm on video, when I'm pitching, I'm making myself sick because I sound like a used car salesperson. How can I possibly stop, selling and educating where I feel comfortable and I can be passionate about it and I can be convincing because I'm fully behind it. I've got all the wood knocked in the arrow, right? I've got all of that, I can be completely congruent because I don't feel like I'm selling. But that's a huge problem right now, right? There's so many methodologies where you say, okay, we'll use my template. Trouble is, if you copy somebody's template, well, then you have the same issues. You sound salesy because they're not your words, and the more generic, and you tend to drop into generics. If you don't know much, you tend to drop into generic phrases. So you stay at very high level, and high level, not generic, means salesy. Specific, detailed, direction, that is educational. So how do we do that? And of course, where do I start? Just getting a start in this area is particularly tricky. And, when you come up with a great way to derail any project is to get people to work on headlines first. So, there's this issue of where do I start? How do I start? How do I get moving? It can be incredibly, incredibly intimidating. And of course, what we want to make sure that we don't have is failure. All right. We just don't want to have all of this stuff not work, and we don't want to have that feeling of failure again trying to do this stuff. So the fortunate thing is about today is that we actually, if you do this right, we can create stuff that people want to read. They want to, they look forward to getting your emails. They look forward to watching your videos. They, you know, hit save for later, and they make sure they schedule in their diary to watch this. They're excited to consume your material. Imagine that. And then imagine, you know, just being able to be educated, right? So that they're feeling, you know, that they feel like that they're learning something, they're getting value. Every time they get a communication from you, even when you're selling them something, they are feeling extreme value. So even if they don't buy anything from you, they still love to receive your communications. They love to get your stuff because it's entertaining, it's educating, there's high value. They don't feel sold to. Right? And when you make an offer, if you use this marketing timeline strategy, which Todd created, you then have this amazing feeling of not being stressed, because at every layer of this process you provide, even people, though the people are going through a marketing funnel, they're getting education at every step of the way. You're not triggering any of those, you know, landmines of, oh my gosh, I'm being sold to. Oh my gosh, you know, I've heard this all before. Oh, it's this again, right? Wait a minute. And that takes a lot of stress off you, all right? So, and then, you know, people can't wait to consume stuff. You know, they're like fat guinea pigs who haven't been fed for 2 days. You know, they love getting your stuff. Really, I was looking for an excuse to include guinea pigs in any slide, but there you go. So that's what we want, right? That is where we're at. Now let's check in with you for a minute. Just pop in the question box. I'd love to hear from you. Which of those things that I talked about in terms of the frustrations and fears, and which one of those stands out to you? I'd be really interested to know. And then what we're going to do is we're going to actually go and show you an example of what a lead is. So just let me know in the question box there. That'd be awesome. Unique mechanism, just getting started is a real challenge for people. Yeah, no, that makes absolute total sense. Education means not salesy. I would love to have that happen. That to me is a huge deal for people. It's, you know, that feeling of being, selling to people, it really gets people off on the back foot. And the great John Carlton, the copywriter, talks about selling from your heels. So what I wanted to do now is show you a real world example from one of your fellow Academy members. Here we go. So, and I'm going to thank Wilton, who I've been working with for some time, even pre-Academy as a private client, and we were working on this lead, and I asked him, look, do you mind if I show people your lead so that they can, at least, before we get into how to construct it and how to figure out the big idea in the lead, they can see what we're moving towards? And he very graciously said yes. So we've got to thank Welton for that, which is just fantastic. So here is a lead. So I'm going to go through and explain a couple of bits as we go through and read this together. And each of these is a chunk. So the good news is every paragraph that you see here is a chunk, a checkbox off a worksheet, okay? And so I'm going to give you those checkboxes later on in the training. But I thought, particularly for you high fact finders that are on, if you can't visualize what our end goal is, you're going to struggle to absorb all the lessons. So that's why we look at these first. So let's have a look here and look at the elements. So the first area I want to, whoops, there we go, is the headline. Okay, so the lead is composed of a headline and the first 200 to 500 odd words, 3 to 800, I think Todd mentions. But it's the basics, it's the core basics. It's almost the copywriting equivalent of the elevator pitch. But there are certain notes that you must hit in this. And if we all know the notes that we have to hit, it helps us, it makes it so much easier to create. And getting started, right, in any sort of pitch is so hard. So let's get into it. So how to get a minimum of 20 extra at-needs calls this month, implementing the Gank system. Now, Welton is in the business of helping funeral homes get more clients. Now, 20 extra at-need calls, which is an industry term, most of you probably haven't heard of it before, but for a funeral director, that is like a lettuce leaf to a guinea pig, right? That is what they desperately want. That's their problem. And this is a problem solution style lead, which again, I'll explain as we go on. So let's just have a look. This first paragraph is crucial. I'll just read it to you and then I'll highlight a couple of the elements. There have been so many disruptions in the funeral industry in the last 20 years, resulting in at-needs calls withering. Very true, very concerning. The big publicly traded companies have gobbled up many funeral homes. Some have been in the same family for generations. More people are opting to go with low-cost cremations rather than the higher ticket traditional services. Discount competitors are popping up, driving down revenue. Offline marketing and community outreach is just not as good as it used to be. So all of the elements in that first paragraph are designed, the lead, if nothing else, the job of the lead is not to sell your product, not to pitch your service, it's to get them to consume your marketing argument. And the unique mechanism here, the good old Gank system, as we've called it, and let's use that one. That the Gank system that we've got up here, that is all about, that's our unique mechanism. So we can't say, people can't say, oh, this is another online, because at the end of the day, this is lead generation for funeral marketing homes, right? They've heard this 1,000 times. So we've got to absolutely avoid that, because that is a massive mental opt-out. So that's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to build intrigue and keep people reading, and nothing gets people stopping or slowing down more than a car accident, right? So getting empathy and understanding. And again, you go, oh God, there's so much to learn. Guess what? It's all step by step. It's all step by step. So don't worry, I'm showing you the end product and then I'm going to show you how the cake was made. So let's keep looking here. So fortunately, smart funeral homes have discovered a little-known method to use a unique type of online advertising to increase at-needs calls by a minimum of 20 extra calls a month. Now, something you're going to learn about is the 3-finger rule, which is an old copywriting term, which is when you wrote your copy, if you didn't restate the promise, the thing that the customer desperately wanted, you needed to rework your copy, because that promise needed to appear somewhere inside that 3 fingers. So that's an example of the 3-finger rule. Again, we're going to go all over this. It's also, we're talking about online advertising, but we have to inoculate straight away that mental opt-out problem, because if we just pitch them at online advertising, they're gone. Okay, they're gone. So can you believe this? So now we're looking at our another part of this. This is our big idea and our opportunity. 1.5 million across the United States, people across the United States search Google for funeral homes each month. 55% of those are searching from their smartphone. If you think about it, you're only looking up funeral services on a mobile phone if someone close to you has died. So true, right? Only half of these inquiries go to sites which can't be accessed on a mobile phone, or Google simply won't even show the sites. The traditional website does not help get you at-need calls for mobile phones. So already, we are trying to separate ourselves from all the competition because Welton has done the research in the marketplace and what other people are offering. So already he's inoculating in advance potential objections that people have to this and pointing out that there is a solution to all of this. So he then goes on to say, I'm going to show you how the Gank method will increase your at-need call rate by a minimum of 20 calls a month. Here's what any rump of Woodlawn family funeral homes in Seymour had to say when he applied the Gank system to his business. And there's going to be a testimonial in there. So there's some proof that the promise works, right? There's some initial proof, and the lead needs some cool promise and proof right there. We're going to go through, there are 13 different types of proof that you can offer at this point. So for those of you already freaking out and saying, I haven't got testimonials, I haven't got proof, stay right with me, because I'm going to show you examples where you need no proof that you've generated through testimonials at all to do a lead. So stay with me. So then we talk about credibility here. So in this case, you are hiring Welton and his firm, so you need to know who this dude is, but we don't need to go on and on about it. My name's Welton Hong. You might have seen me speak at major funeral industry events such as Funeral Service Business Plan and Cremation Innovation Summit. That is a wild and wacky convention, let me tell you. I'm a regular contributor to the renowned American Funeral Director magazine, and you might have read my book, Making Your Phone Ring for Funeral Homes. So Welton, is an expert and an influencer in this market, so we take advantage of that. Now, again, you're already thinking, oh, but I'm on the journey, I'm just starting out, I don't have any of those things. Forget that. Stop thinking that right now, because there's another way of doing it if you're on a journey, and I'm going to teach it to you, okay? So just don't write it off right now. I know what you're thinking, don't do it. We spent the last 18 months implementing and testing Gank to figure out how to work with our clients to increase their at-needs calls in the face of ever-expanding competition from public companies and low-cost cremation businesses, which is the huge thing in that industry right now. In the next few minutes, I'm going to explain the Gank method and prove to you how you can expect a minimum of 20 extra at-needs calls a month. What you just saw there, and what I just went through, is a prime example of a lead. Now, here's the thing. This could actually be the start of the copy for a sales letter. You could literally drop that into the first few paragraphs of a sales letter. You could use that as the opening of a webinar once you've done the webinar admin stuff that you must do when you start a webinar. You could use this as an attention grabber for a video series. The whole beauty and the whole power of this process is it's all about understanding and separating the design of our marketing campaign to sell our product from the media. We don't think about the media right now. All you use is pen and paper, or pencil and iPad, right? You don't think about the technology. You don't think about the delivery right now. Okay, so you don't think about any of those things. All we're doing here is, we are identifying right now, we want to focus on the big idea and the lead. And we're only doing this, remember, after we have done 1 and 2 at least. So we figured out our thesis and we figured out our offer. So we're not leading with this. Most people start at the start, big mistake. All right? The big idea in the lead is so much easier to do once you have done offer, thesis, and also have a good understanding of your market. So if rather than construct and go through and do a whole, this is where the power of this starts to get into play, and I hope you're excited as I am about the power of this, is I'm a huge fan of minimum viable anything. Minimum viable anything. Well, guess what? The lead that you create, that lead that I just showed you, is the minimum viable sales letter, minimum viable script, minimum viable opening to a podcast. And by getting that polished with the help of your peers in Copy Club, well, guess what? All of a sudden, everything else becomes so much easier for you. So rather than and by the way, getting people to consider, seriously, look at this. Hang on, where are we? Right, can you see how many pages? These are all the pages of my Swedish Scientist sales letter. Now, if I asked you guys to evaluate that, some of you might very kindly do that, but you have to read through the whole thing, and it takes a while. Look at that. Look at how many pages it is, right? You have to read through all of that. But what I did first was I created a lead to make sure, because if people don't go through the lead and they aren't excited by the lead, they aren't intrigued by the lead, then guess what? They're not going to consume your marketing argument, let alone buy your product at the end of it. So there's no point going and doing all the bulk of that work until you polished your lead. And that's what makes this so powerful. And then we apply that with Copy Club, and boom, magic starts to happen. All right. Now I want to show you the slide that, with Todd Brown's permission, that made me literally lose my mind. I was about to say something else then. When I was first exposed to the E5 method, and it's such a powerful. It's like there's so much to deconstruct. We're going to focus on one element. So make sure you are super focused right now, because this is so powerful. All right, let's have a look. Okay, whoa. There's a lot here. The marketing funnel engineering grid, which Todd created, is absolutely phenomenal. Now, we've seen elements of this already when we were talking about the unique mechanism. We were talking, so we've already talked about, you know, where is our market that we're targeting? Are they unaware? Like, they not only do they don't know they have a problem, they're not even aware that they have a problem yet, right? They don't know. So Todd uses the example of a golfer. They're a golfer who's a senior golfer, and they don't know the potential stresses that they're putting on the back. And by figuring out the best way to do the work with on their back, say with a chiropractor, for example, they'd be able to actually improve their golf. But they don't even know they've got a problem because they've got no back pain right now, right? So that's one. Problem aware. They've got back pain, but they have no idea how to fix it, right? So, you know, where's our market? They're solutions aware. They know that they can go to acupuncture, that they can go to a doctor and get tablets. They can go to a chiropractor. They can go to a osteo. They can go to a fish slapping therapist, you know, whatever, right? But they're aware of solutions. Then, as we go up the scale, we hit product aware, right? And they're actually aware that not only so they're aware that chiropractic is the way to go, that they need to figure out, well, what chiropractor do I go? Who do I pick? Who do I choose of the 7 chiropractors that are here? And then, of course, most aware are where they've actually done business with you. So they know the chiropractor that they like. They know the people that they do. So what does that have to do with today's lessons? Well, a huge amount. Because if you look over here, you'll notice that we've got different types of leads. So the type of lead that you create is different based on where your market is. This is incredibly, incredibly powerful. And by the way, oops, no, come back. Pen, now out. If you look at the other side of this and the indirect versus direct appeal, the style and the length of the funnel, so the higher you go up the pyramid, the shorter your marketing cycle is. The lower you go down, the longer the campaign has to be, because you have to convince them of a whole bunch of things first. And where this becomes super powerful then is that we're able, depending on where people are, where your market is, we don't have to think about all these different lead types. We have to pick the lead type which is most appropriate. So, for example, in Welton's case with his lead, he is dealing with the market in this area, in the problem aware to solution aware. So, and this is an interesting rule, any of these leads, as you go lower down, like even somebody who's your client, a story lead will still work. However, an offer lead, which is, hey, come to my chiropractic and I'll give you 10 sessions for $1,400. I'm making that up. Now, if you're not even unaware and you just get an email saying, come to a chiropractor and you get 10, by the way, this is how a lot of people market, which is insane. Hey, come and get 10 sessions for $1,400. You're going to go, what? They've got no idea. They've got no education. Yet somebody who's your client and they're used to paying $2,000 for 10 sessions goes, wow, that's a deal. Sold. I'm done. Do you see how that works? That is extremely powerful. So, depending on where so a story lead will work for everybody. And don't worry, I'm going to explain what every single one of these means to you and give you examples. A proclamation lead or an intrigue lead, these will all help as we go up the ladder. But if you try a problem solution lead with somebody who is unaware or just aware that they've got a problem, it's not going to help. They don't have enough information. They don't have a body of evidence to be able to make a decision. Hence why the sequence is longer. Does that make sense? It's genius. It's absolute genius. Let's stop in for a sec and let's just bring it, says Sue. Yeah, what's the insight you've gotten so far out of the engineering grid here? What's the thing that jumps out at you? I'd love to hear. And while you're typing that into the question box, just to fill out the other side of this again, we're not really talking about this today, but what's incredibly powerful is understanding where your market is in this pyramid also dictates the types of offers and products you should be doing. So for example, lower, the more unaware, the more you need to rely on lower price, surveys, tripwires, and free. So for example, your first dollar is designed, that's my book, by the way, for those of you who weren't aware, your first dollar is a free start into my funnel. Yet most of the people, the early people who came into the academy, for example, they were in the most aware. They were already clients of mine. So they still, I actually used a story lead. Actually, it was a secret. I used a secret lead because most of my market is problem and solution aware, right? So I was using the secret lead. And I'll explain that in a second. The Swedish scientist, 10 violinists and a guinea pig, that is an example of a secret lead. So that will work for problem aware up, which in my market, which is incredibly sophisticated, that's the nice way of saying it, incredibly jaded is another way of saying it, is all part of that. So let's have a look here. Know where your avatar is so you know how to lead them in. You have to know your market, correct? And this, by going through this process, and what I'm going to show you today, if you cut now, rather than just thinking, oh, I need to know my market, no, we're going to tell you specifically what you need to find out, which makes it a hell of a lot easier and a lot more focused for you to do this. Because if you can't do a lead document, if you can't do that headline and those couple of hundred words, then you don't have enough. You're right, it's an you expose your knowledge of the particular market at that particular point in time. And that's sweet. That's no problem, because all that does is let us know where we need to figure that out. Helps to segment offer and figure that out. I like the easier, smaller angle. The concept matches with my market. Caregivers who are either not quite starting or at the beginning of their journey. Absolutely. What do you mean by the sequence is longer? Literally, the longer the sequence. So the further down, if they are completely unaware, I have to educate. Like if somebody doesn't have a back problem, and this is the example Todd gives, if somebody doesn't have a back pain problem, and they're playing golf, they don't even know that with preemptive chiropractic work, they could actually improve their golf score. They have no idea. So the first thing you would have to identify is that they want to improve their golf score. Then you have to explain to them and do a marketing argument. We have to explain why they need to look after their back. And then once we've explained why they need to look after their back and why flexibility in their back can mean that they can hit the ball longer, then we have to say, well, the solution to get flexibility in your back is not Reiki, is not fish slapping, it's chiropractic. And chiropractic is the way. So then you have to convince them about chiropractic. And then once you convince them about chiropractic, then you have to convince them, well, what type of chiropractor should you use? And then you have to convince them about that. See? Sequence. Long time. Whereas if I'm fully aware of the importance of back flexibility, you don't need to teach me about that. If I'm fully aware that chiropractic is a solution to this, you don't need to teach me about it. You don't even have to reveal to me that chiropractic is a way of doing this. So if I'm aware of chiropractic, but I don't know which chiropractic to choose, that's a much smaller, because all I have to then convince you of is why you should use this particular chiropractor who offers this type of unique mechanism. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Tailor info to the target market experience. Exactly right. So this here is so powerful, right? I just love it. I literally lost my mind when I saw this, because it just made life so much easier. Because rather, if you just plumped here and said, oh my God, look at all these types of leads, you'd be in all sorts, right? But if you figure out where your market is, then you know that. So let's use some examples from some Academy members. So for example, if we look at our great friend in Holland, Richard Kuhlman, and Richard has a business talking to people about nappy cakes, diaper cakes, for those of you in the United States. This is a market that, if we looked at this in where they are in their pyramid, they're problem aware, because I've just been landed with the job of organising my best friend's baby shower. But they're not solution. What do I do in that baby shower? And the unique mechanism, like Richard doesn't even have to think about much of a unique mechanism, because diaper cakes are a new thing. They're a cool new thing. So selling them a diaper cake kit is fine. But where they're at is here in the problem aware zone. Okay, so that's where they are at. And I'll encourage you, of course, now we've got this shared terminology. This is something in our engage and implementation sessions you can ask me, well, in the engage sessions, I should say very specifically, we can work out where is your market on this pyramid. And remember, we always go for the lowest common denominator, right? We go for the lowest lead, because remember, a low lead will work on everybody up to most aware. Whereas, and this is unfortunately what people do, they make an offer or an invitation or a promise lead. Again, we'll explain what those are in just a minute. And guess what? They're shocked when they don't get any response, because people aren't at that stage yet. They haven't figured that out, and that's what's so powerful. All right, let's talk about the different type of leads and what they mean by example. So we start off, and at the top, and these are in order, okay, from most aware, if you recall, from the market there. These are from the highest end of the pyramid to the biggest end of the pyramid. So let's start at the top. The offer lead. So an offer lead is literally an offer. Like I said, you know, hey, I send you an email. Hey, guess what? I'm having a $1,000 discount on joining the academy. Do you want in? Link. That's an offer lead, right? It's they know me. They know my I don't have to tell them who I am. I don't need to do it, and that's why it's appropriate at the top of the pyramid. People who are already customers of mine. Hey, I'm doing this new $97 workshop on blah. They know me, they know what I'm doing, They know, so it's just a straight offer. Okay, so that is the the simplest type of lead to do, because it's just, here's the offer, enjoy. Right? That's the simplest and quickest type, but you can only do that to your most aware customers, people who are literally customers of yours. That's the, how do you know when somebody's really aware of you? They're a customer. They've actually bought something from you previously. So that's where that offer goes, right? And that's where that offer leads. The next one down, which sort of helps a little more for people who are in that, solution aware, so that you remember, all right? So they're a solution aware, is an invitation style offer. So an example of this I've used on many occasions. It's mainly to people who are former customers, but also people who are on my list and have been on my list for a long time. I'll say, you may have heard this before. Hey, look, I'm putting together this one-on-one consulting program, or this group consulting program. I'd like to invite you. You've been on my list for a long time. You're a somebody who purchased Magcast. I'd like to invite you to be part of the founder group. Right? It's an invitation. So you could apply that in any sort of way. So for somebody who is a again, to use the Todd chiropractor example, an invitation lead would be something like, hey, I want you to come in for a free session where we're going to work on your flexibility, and so you can see how that affects your and impacts your golf, right? That's one that will work on solution aware. Now, the promise lead. Guess what? Relatively simple again. You come in, you do these 5 sessions, and your golf score will drop by 5 based on this. If you come to Niche Style Academy for 12 months, we are going to build your business from $0 to $10,000 a month. Right? That's the promise, right? That's an example of a promise lead. So you have to be aware that you need that online, to make that sort of offer. You need to know, in my case, that you have to know that you want to create an online business. You have to know that there's another alternative. You have to have probably done and tried it before and not worked out. So you're open to the fact that coaching and our very unique methodology that we use here, the niche style process, that will work, right? So again, a promise lead is all about that. Now, as we get down, I've done this great to scale, haven't I? So as we get into our problem aware, we can make a problem solution lead. You have this problem, I have the solution. It's that simple, right? You've tried starting an online business for many years. It hasn't worked out for whatever reason. I have the solution. This niche style process, which you've never heard of, there's no box for you to put in because it's a unique mechanism, will solve that problem. It offers hope, right? A problem solution lead is all about offering hope, and that's what a unique mechanism does. It gives you hope. Oh, it's because I haven't seen niche style before. That's what I'm going to do. Oh, I haven't used the gank method, so that's why my phone, I'm not getting as many on-needs calls as what I have been in the funeral industry before. That's where this problem solution comes from. Oh, thank you, Adam. I'm glad the breakdown's helpful. Secret system. Love the secret. Now, as we're going, we're going further down our funnel here. Let's just, again, just to remind you. So we've gone product aware, solution aware. So they're aware of being a chiropractor. We're going solution aware. Now we're getting down into sort of the area of solutions and problems. And this is relatively, particularly the problem aware. I've got a problem, but I don't need. All right. Now, interestingly, do you notice that the problem solution is still high up? I've got a problem, here's a solution. Because the reason it is like that, hey, you need to lose weight, I have a diet. that's mental opt-out city, right? So you've got to be, there's a certain level of education that they need to be. There's a certain sophistication level that they need to be. They need to be a certain height up this pyramid for them to be able to have that effect. If that makes sense. Hope it does. So we've got things like the secret lead, intrigue lead, proclamation lead, and story lead. So let's go back and have a look at that. So, oops. Let's correct that. So it's product. Hello, product. Here we are. Let's fix that up too. So it's, and why do I keep product? And then, sorry for that confusion. So solution, and then of course problem, and unaware, which of course is the biggest segment of any market, which is why if you can develop a funnel which works with people who are unaware, that's where the biggest possible offers and the biggest money possibly get. However, when you're starting out, sometimes it's easier to work with people who are higher up the pyramid. It's easier, it gets easier, the lead is easier as you go up. Okay, so a secret system. The gank method, what's the gank method? I don't know what the gank method is. A secret system used by only very smart funeral homes to make their phone rings at least a minimum of 20 calls a month, right? Secret, classic secret. Who doesn't love a secret? Intrigue lead is a variation on the secret. This may sound familiar to you. What does a Swedish scientist, 10 violinists, and a guinea pig have to do with you earning $10,000 a month by the end of the year? It's not a secret, but it's intriguing. What? Swedish scientists, violinists? And I knew it worked because I had mates of mine emailing me and said, I've got to know, what is it? That's where you've hit a perfect lead like that. Now, the last two, which work at the lowest end of the market, are proclamation and prediction style lead. So a proclamation and prediction style lead are things like, so what's an example? By 2020, the stock market is going to crash at this level. By, I predict, some of the classic Agora lines, there's a new railroad coming across America. And imagine if you knew about the railroads before they did that, right? All of those are classic elements of all of these things. So, product and proclamation. Now, the story lead is the lead that works with the unaware market. It's in some ways the most powerful lead, but it's also the biggest, longest construct. Okay, because you need to tell a story. And why is a story so powerful? Because we learn by stories, right? That's how we were taught. That's how we learned. When you get together with your friends and they tell you about this new car that they bought, they tell you the story of the car. It's the story that brings you in. There's a protagonist. There's an enemy or an antagonist, right? They're on a journey. I started this journey, and this is where I discovered. Those are the most powerful leads because they work with the unaware market. But then you have the longest sales cycle, which is fine. None of these are a problem. Plus, a story lead gets you to the point where you need to look at tripwires and small products, $29 products, $97 products, a couple of $100 products, simple products, simple sales. So, for example, I'm currently reworking the Swedish scientist concept, and that's the beauty of this campaign, right? To do a story lead for Facebook leads that have never heard of me, right? So that's where a story lead, and again, reminder, story lead. This literally, look, right? Lots of pages, right? Because it's a story. Whereas if we go up to the top, our offer lead, okay, cool, right? Hey, here's $1,000 off. You've got 2 days. Are you in or out? Right, very quick. But that's going to be completely useless to somebody who's never heard of me, wouldn't know me from a bar or so. I know, hard to believe, right? Never known me, doesn't know me from a bar or so. It doesn't make any sense. Yet how often have we created offers which are higher up the pyramid to people who are actually still lower down the pyramid? That to me was a mind-blowing revelation. Okay, let's check in with you guys. Which of what, is there, what about this lead process that's been the aha for you right now before we get into, because now we're going to transfer to construction. Okay, so I just want to check in with you guys to see what is the aha here for construction of this. Are you going to find this useful? Let me know in the question box as he looks around for his water bottle and realized he didn't bring it in. Yay. So I'll just use mental techniques here. Using very powerful mental techniques. Lots of responses. Smart to go granular and tune. Yes, marketing to upper levels and the client is at the bottom. Never considered that there were so many types of leads. That the leads won't work will go up the pyramid but not down. Spot on. Different types of leads require different background stories to get them up to speed for what you do and what you can offer them. This is great stuff. Thank you, Tom. That is awesome. Okay, are you ready? Now, I'm going to give you the checklists to first of all, and again, I have to emphasize that this session today, this FOMO training, this is all Todd Brown's E5 creation, which with his absolute blessing, we are teaching all the people that are in the academy and the people who join the academy by taking up the E5 offer. So I just want to, I wish I'd came up with all of this, but I haven't. I have implemented it like a mofo though. Let me tell you, I've made sure that that's the case. All right, let's go. So the first thing, so these set the hook, begins with and explains the big idea, restates the primary promise, provides primary promise proof, overcomes initial objections, provides track record, and demonstrates credibility. Guess what? That is the checklist for creating a lead. So you remember our lead, and our lead is always going to be a written lead first, right? We're going to design our lead in a written style. We want to come up with a headline and a number of 200 to 800 odd words, just like you saw with Welton's at the start of this presentation, right? And the reason we want this, because what's so awesome is as you start doing this and you create this, then we've got something that we can implement with Copy Club, okay, which is really, really super exciting, and I can't wait to introduce that to you all. So let's understand first the job of the lead, okay, and this is key. Set the hook. It's the lead and the headline. A lot of people write headlines to sell the product, and guess what? So you're starting from the headline, and when again, just to be absolutely crystal clear with you guys, when I say headline, it could be a headline in a Facebook ad. It could be an advertisement on Google pay-per-click. It could be a YouTube interstitial. It could be anything, okay? It's the hook, right? Most people make the mistake of using the headline to sell the product. Guess what? If you're selling the product in the headline, what are you doing instantly? You're being salesy, right? Instant opt-out, I'm being sold. Off they go. They don't have time. We don't have time when we're being battered with upwards of 3,000 marketing messages every day. Your brain needs a break. So it's going to filter all of that away. So if you're trying to sell, you want to be salesy? Sell the product in your headline. Whereas if the headline and the lead, all it's doing is selling the consumption of the marketing argument, the education that you're going to deliver. We have to sell people getting free, valuable, interesting information. That is what the lead's job is. And the headline, which we will go into very shortly, because that deserves its own very own section. The headline sells you reading into the first couple of paragraphs. The first couple of paragraphs gets you to consume the rest of the lead, and the lead then gets you to consume the marketing argument, and we're on our way to the races. Okay, so let's keep going. So begins with and explains the big idea, right? So examples of the big idea. Now the big idea, and again, we're going to talk about big idea and big idea creation, so don't stress about this. There's a step-by-step process. But the big idea is all about the thing that's going to hook people in, the educational element, the intriguing element, again, which we'll talk about in just a minute, that will bring people in. Okay, so when we're dealing with the lead, you know, we're talking about here's what's happening and here's how this solves this particular problem and delivers you your desired result, right? That's what we're doing here. Okay, that's what we're approaching. So begins with and explains the big idea. So for me, the big idea was the Swedish scientist, 10 violinists, and a guinea pig. And the big idea, though, was that we need to apply peak performance coaching methodologies to people who are starting out beginning an online business. It's insane, right? It makes absolutely no sense that the people who need the most coaching, which is when they're beginning something, don't have any access to coaching at all because it's so expensive, that they have to bumble along, and then hopefully, and no wonder, only a tiny percentage of them are successful, and they then go and get coaching and they leverage that success. It's the wrong way around. That was my big idea. That was my aha. And I mentioned to a couple of you my next one, because what's so powerful about all of this, you can come up with leads every week, right? Not when you first start this, but down the track, right? So rather than creating new products to interest the market, keep your same set of products, because product creation is hard by definition. Got an email from Adrian McGillis, one of our fellow Academy members, and he was talking about how hard it was to create the course. And he says, is there easier ways? And I said, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what methodology, what thing you use. When you are creating something, when you're giving birth to something, it's as messy and painful as giving birth. That's just the nature of it, right? It doesn't get any easier. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. All right? It's still, you still have to get yourself up to the front line. But here's the thing, right? When we're restating that promise, we have to then, you know, with the lead, we have to remind people, here's your big problem and here's how we're going to solve it. You know, so the big promise is you are going to earn, for me, was you are going to earn $10,000, we're going to build your business to $10,000 a month inside 12 months. That's the big promise, right? That is something that people want. Then we're providing, so provide primary, say this quick, provide primary promise proof, provide primary promise proof, provide primary promise proof. There you go, there's a diction exercise for you. So if we've just then addressed the primary promise, then we need to provide proof. Now people are freaking out right now. Don't freak out, because guess what? There's dozens, well not dozens, there's 13 different types of proof. For example, all the proof that I used was, even though I've got testimonials, I could use testimonials, but the proof I used to prove my big idea was the academic research, peer-reviewed research that Anders Ericsson, the Swedish scientist, did over the last 5 years, right, to show how to get to peak performance. I use that. Another fellow Academy member, Sam Guest, who is doing kiteboarding instructing, was inspired by the book Flow, right? So, oh, actually, no, it's not Flow. It's something with fire, Stealing Fire, I want to say, Stealing Fire, Steve Kotler. And he was inspired by that book, for example. I've got another book, which is Algorithms to Live By, which is going to be my next big idea book. But here's the thing, you can create these 800, you know, how long does it take you? It might take you a week or two to do the first one. But once you're in the flow of it, once you understand what you're looking for, creating lead, you can create multiple leads. So every marketing idea goes stale. No marketing idea, particularly in this day and age, if you get 12 months, 18 months out of a big idea, a hook, well, you've done extraordinarily well in this day and age. So you keep redoing this. And what opened my eyes, and as a big reminder from the unique mechanism training, is Agora have been selling all of these things, the death of America and the railroad across America and Obama's mistresses, and I find it distasteful. But however, that marketing sells a $47 a month stock picking newsletter. Now, if they keep rotating these, they literally, in their case, they have weekly pitch offs for different ideas, and they're constantly testing every week using Copy Club, hint, hint, right? They're constantly testing these big ideas, these leads, because if they get a lead that works, then they can go on and produce the rest of the funnel, right? They can go and spend the work. There's no point going forward if they can't get the lead to work. That's what's so powerful about this stuff. So let's keep going. Overcome initial objections. There's got to be some objections, right? There's always, what's the elephant in the mind's room, right? You need to hit that right out of the park. And you remember with Welton's lead, he was dealing with the objections of, well, I've already got a website, that I've tried online advertising and it's failed, right? By literally saying there's a little known secret method that other people, smart funeral homes, have used. And then he provided proof of that. In his case, he had a client testimonial. So that was his proof. Provide track record. Now, here's very powerful. Welton, easy, right? Easiest part of the lead to write, because he's spoken at funeral home conferences. He's written a book on getting clients for funeral homes. He's featured in the industry publication. Sweet. He's done an awesome job in doing that. But Ed, what if I'm on a journey? If you're on a journey, guess what? All of my proof, even though I have proof from testimonials, I didn't use it. I used the stories and proof from the book Peak, right? There are many, many ways to provide track record. I didn't use my track record to sell the Academy. I used Anders Ericsson's track record, writing his book Peak and being the preeminent academic who has researched all of peak performance over it. He spent 20 years doing it. I borrowed his credibility. Do you see how this works? I hope you're getting excited right now. In fact, I'd love to hear from people on a journey or an expert. What's the aha out of the big idea? The lead construction, right? These are the things that we have to hit. And literally each one of these is basically your paragraph, right? So you just have to hit each one of these. So what have we got here? Clarity of how to focus for different target markets. Explains why I've worked too hard in the fast. Story can be lead can be used with cold traffic, but takes longer to scale with higher ticket products. This is brilliant, said Scott. Awesome. Will you be sending us the checklist, or do we need to take notes? I will make these available as a PDF. Absolutely, that's a great idea. So I will do that. Probably worth writing it down as well. Copy Club. Now you're starting to see why Copy Club is going to work. I like the idea of creating multiple leads for the same product. This is a revelation. This was the biggest lifestyle game changer for me, full stop, was realizing that, Michael. Because, hey, I'm the product creation master, right? I have created a lot of hit products. But every time, it's like you have to get, another product, another launch, another, no. And guess what? It doesn't allow you to grow and facilitate. Now, my full-time job's the Academy. It's the only thing I do, right? That's it. That's everything. So I can come up with new things. I can really get in, and I can talk to you on Voxer, and I can get in the Facebook group, because I don't have to be worried about figuring out what the next product is so I can pay the exorbitant school fees of my children, right? I don't have to worry about that, because I know that the Swedish Scientist, it's got some legs to run. That'll probably work for another 6 to 9 months, probably. But then I've got my next big idea ready to go, which is going to be algorithms to live by, right? That's going to be my next. And it's going to be a completely different lead, completely different mechanism, but the product where it's going to is identical. And that is so awesome. I can't tell you, because it allows, here's what's great. It allows you to provide so much more value for people. Right? You can take the time to speak with people individually. You can take the time to give them a call or record a Voxer, all that, because you're not stressed about doing that. And you can focus then on your marketing as well, because you can come up with, you can be more creative because you're not on this constant product creation grind. Now, of course, you're going to have to create some products. Don't make no mistake. And it's, you know, and there's no simple way to do it. We can try with the Academy, of course. What we try to do is we try to make sure that it's the type of stuff that you're doing is congruent with your skill sets. That's important, right? Because if you are a high fact finder, high follow through, and I'm getting you to speak off the cuff video, like a off the cuff webinar, it's not going to happen, right? Not in a million years. You could try, and it'll be the most miserable experience of your life, and you'll go away, which would be sad. Whereas if I get you to, you know, write some checklists and some guides and do all that sort of stuff, you're going to love it. Right, some procedure. Let's create a set of step-by-step processes, and I'm going to give you the time. I'm going to give you 2 weeks to create each module. That's your deadline. All of a sudden, that's a much better way of doing things. I followed Mark Ford for years. Love that you are breaking down the long-form sales letter. Yes, this is all, you know, and that's Todd works and has worked and has consulted with Mark Ford. And again, you know, it just goes to show, you know, it just goes to show that, you know, sometimes you know, you should, even if stuff, you know, if there's lessons to be learned everywhere, even in stuff that offends you, right? So it's fascinating. One product, many leads. Methodical process for steps. More confidence in journey method that you don't have to pretend you're an expert. No, there's just no need, right? Because you're leveraging the expertise of others, and that is just as powerful. The brain makes no difference. You know, you talk about, you know, the science of a mentally rehearsed performance and a physically rehearsed performance. Same mechanisms apply here, which is what makes it so exciting. Much easier to create, oh, g'day Rob too. Much easier to create new marketing messages and new products. Love the idea of going the deep with one product. It's so good, because then you're giving real value to clients, and of course then your clients are loving you because they're going, wow, this experience is amazing. I can't believe you're doing all this stuff. Well, the reason you can do all this stuff is because you're not having to constantly create new fresh products and market to new fresh markets or new fresh segments because of that, and that's what's so powerful. Let's keep going. So the headline, okay, so when we're looking at the big idea and the headline, what are the elements that we're looking at? The very first thing that you need to look at is, what's the emotion that we're trying to evoke? Okay, what's the emotion we're trying to evoke? So for me, when I did this exercise, I think I had relief and hope. That was what I was looking for, relief and hope. Because the type of people that I was trying to target with Swedish Site are people who've tried to create an online business. They've been an entrepreneur, and for whatever reason, they just haven't got this in. And I believe the reason is because they don't have access to coaching when they begin. I truly 150% believe that. And they don't have access to the latest coaching methodologies and all of those sorts of things. I totally believe everything that I've just said, right? So that is important. But what's the primary promise? What's the journey you're going to take is the next thing. Once we figured out the emotion, what's the primary promise, the journey? In my case, it was wherever you are now to $10,000 a month. That's the journey I want to take you on, okay? And that's a primary promise. The promise has to be related to their desired results, okay? That has to be what we're looking at. So what's the journey you're going to take people on when they consume and utilize your product or service? They're going to start here and they're going to go here. What is that? That's the primary promise, the journey, right? And that helps you write a story, right? Because every story is a change. A story is simply this, a change in circumstance, right? They start here and they go, a story where they start here and end here, exactly the same place, boring. It doesn't matter. A story is equally interesting if they start here and they end up here in the toilet, or rags to riches. Riches to rags, rags to riches. Both interesting stories. But rags to rags or riches to riches, boring. Right? So we need to take people on a journey with our products. And I find that very, very, again, outside the scope of today, but when you look at product creation, that's a key element. Then, of course, you've got to provide proof. Primary promise proof, right? Again, what's the proof of that journey? And again, I borrowed the proof. I could give you testimonials, no problemo, right? That's fine. But I actually used examples, the 10 violinists, the guinea pig, from Anders Ericsson, from the book. You can all do this. It doesn't matter whether you're an expert or you're on a journey, or you're an expert but you're using a journey. Well, it doesn't matter. That is what's so exciting, and I hope you're getting this. I really hope you're getting this because it's so exciting. Metaphors and similes. So the next thing that we want to think about is how can we explain it? Metaphors are extremely powerful. If you want one thing that gives you an aha moment, and it allows you to sum up a whole bunch of teaching in one thing, one concept, that is a metaphor or a simile. And these are things that you have to work with over time. There's no question about it. You're not going to just go, yeah, oh, there it is. For me, to give you the example here for the Academy, it was getting people to relate back to when they were at high school and they were learning their first musical instrument, or they just joined the football team. They needed a coach. You needed a music teacher, right? You had weekly lessons. You had to turn up at particular times. And if you did it for a year, you were better. You're a better football player. You're a better swimmer. You're a better oboe player. You're a better guitarist, whatever it was, right? And then I say, isn't it crazy that it's like being locked in a room with a violin and a book and being told, hey, knock yourself out. I'll see you in 12 months. That's what happens when you buy a normal course, a metaphor, right? An example, something that can take that, you know, they use, picture, it's X-Files meets Brady Bunch. It gives you a visual, right? It gives you something to hang on to. And when we can do that, you know, and let's face it, simplifying is the hardest possible thing you can do. You know, what's the great Hemingway line? That I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one. You know, and that's the truth, right? So we can work through this. But as I said to Adrian, mate, I know he spent like 8 weeks crafting his course and he's about to do all this sales stuff. And I said to Adrian, mate, you know, here's the thing. If we do this and this develops you $80,000 of revenue, when was the last time you earned $80,000 in 6 months, right? It's awesome when you do that. We also have to restate our unique mechanism. Again, I'm not going to go into unique mechanism because we've had the unique mechanism training and you know what unique mechanism is, but you need to incorporate that. And what's the intellectually interesting element? What's the thing that intrigues? And I love Todd's phraseology here, the intellectually interesting, fancy pants way of phrasing it, but I think it's important because people are smart, right? And for them to want to go forward, there has to be something that intrigues. And intrigues means an opportunity to expand my intelligence. It's an opportunity for me to have an aha moment. Russell Brunson talks about it brilliantly when he talks about the epiphany, right? And creating an epiphany bridge. I was here, I read this, I had an aha moment, and wow, that was it. Now here's the deal, right? Here's the clue to creating an intellectually interesting element. Say that fast. When I was reading the book Peak, like there were times where I just had to put the book down and chuckle to myself. Boom, right there, I had an epiphany. Write it down, because that, if you had that reaction, guess what? Your audience is going to have that reaction. That is going to be super duper exciting. So that's, you know, it's a great, Gary Halbert called them aha moments or wow moments. When you read something, you go, wow, you know, light bulb moment. That is your intellectually interesting element. And the way you develop those is you become aware of when you're reading stuff. I'm hoping a few of you had a couple of epiphanies, light bulb moments during the course of this training today, right? They are, you know, you train yourself to any time where you go, oh, you know, where you shake your head and go, oh, I can't believe it. You know, it's unbelievable. You get told, you know, different things. And, you know, BuzzFeed works on this and Facebook works on this. What are the articles that you read? The ones that intrigue you, you know, the ones that offer some sort of problem. And it's very important that, you know, the difference between clickbait and intellectually interesting is whether they deliver on the promise, right? And BuzzFeed, I think, does a brilliant job of actually delivering on the promise of the headline. That's why they've stayed around, whereas plenty of other more dodgy clickbait style sites have dropped off, and indeed Facebook have banned them, because they never deliver on the promise. Because there's nothing worse than intriguing raising somebody's intellectual interest and then having it smashed. It's a road to ruin. Okay. So there we have it. So we've got our headline, we've got our big idea, and we've got our lead points. So right now, that's the. I've got a few minutes here to answer any questions that you all have. So, and if you don't have a question, what I'd love to know is, what was your epiphany moment during this training today? Or if you have a specific question, then feel free to pop that in too. If I had more time, I would write you a shorter letter. That's fantastic, Tom. Thank you. I probably butchered the saying. I usually say everything is attributed. I had a physics teacher who used to say, every time there was a quote, he'd always just say Abraham Lincoln said this, regardless of who said it. It was very funny. I love that. So, yes, exactly, Tom. That's it. So if there are any questions, speak now, or, well, not forever hold your peace. I'll see you in an engaged session and we can work on this and the shared methodology. What I would love you to do, your homework, for what it's worth, is I'd love you to have a go. If you are at the point where you have an idea for a product or offering of some kind, I'd love you to have a crack at doing your own lead. I'll make available the PDF slides. It's probably going to be Monday before you get this stuff, but I'll make the training and the PDF available, and Welton's been very kind to share his lead. I'd love you to have a go of creating a lead, because here's the bonus, right, of creating a lead. If you create your lead, guess what? You might become one of the first leads that we evaluate in Copy Club. And I can't wait to share. It's new. It's a new technology. It's incredibly collaborative. It's going to be wonderful. So I can't wait to see that. So let's have a look here. Great session. Fantastic. Now, Linda said, not clear what the elements are part of the headline. So what I'll do is I'll break this down into the headline and the, and again, for those of you who have E5, you've got all of these worksheets, right? You've got those that are available to you. For those of you who don't, I will get you a copy of those with Todd's permission. He's been awesome for the Academy, so bless you, Todd. And if you ever get the opportunity to buy E5, I would get it when it's appropriate for you to get. So I will make those available as part of the download. So keep a lookout for that. As a high fact finder, I find myself being overwhelmed, and I notice a lot of people in doing E5 are getting that overwhelming feeling. You got to remember where the training is and where you are in your journey. Okay, this is very, very important. All the training that we've taught today is for people who have done the following. They have tested a market. They have determined that they can get leads for that market. They have determined that the market is responsive and is prepared to have discussions. And they've figured out what they want to, what's their first minimum viable product. Okay, that's where we're at with those. If you're not there, put this in the back of your memory bank. It'll be available to you at all times in the Academy, and you'll be able to utilize it when you need to utilize it, right? It's very important for you to not, particularly for high fact finders, is if you absorb too much information, that's where you get the overload. Us simple high quick start types, one in through one ear and out the other, it's like YOLO time, we'll just go and try it, all right? For high fact finders, you can't consume that. And for those of you who are joining us that are new to the Academy, it's when we talk about high fact finder and high quick start, that's part of the Colby Index. And if you haven't had a chance to do that, that is one of the first lessons in the fundamentals project, and it's very fascinating to figure that out. I love that I don't have to have multiple programs. I can focus on one program but target multiple audiences with multiple sales letters. Yeah, whatever sales device you use. And remember, yeah, I've used a lot of sales letter terminology here, but this works identically. And indeed, I want you to divorce yourself. Don't even decide what media you're going to use right now. We're not at that point. What we want to do is design the marketing campaign. And I find that incredibly powerful. Excellent, Tom. Going back to leads, I didn't quite get story lead. Can you give an example? So, you know, a classic, you know, one of my favorite story leads of all time is the story of the one-legged golfer, right? And that goes on to tell a story about how this guy was at a driving range, and he looked and noticed somebody that was cracking a ball, you know, 250 yards, just beautifully straight, just repeatedly every time. And then he noticed that the guy only had one leg. Right now, if you're a golfer of any, you don't know what your problem is or what you, but all of a sudden you are immediately intrigued. How's this one leg? How can he do that? Like, if, you know, you can't even intellectually comprehend how somebody can do that. Yet the secret to him doing that could be the secret to you unleashing, you know, 300-yard bombs straight down the fairway every time. That's an example of a story lead. Different leads for different parts of the market. Good stuff. We'll revive when I'm ready to create copy. What's the emotion in the lead you showed in Welton's letter? It was fear, right? They're literally being crushed by public companies, you know, that go around buying up funeral homes and then throwing masses of marketing dollars, and also the fear of online. So the emotion was fear and hope, right? Fear, here's what it was, and here's a light. So that was in Welton's. That was exactly, great question, mate. That was it. Getting my head around applying this to my promo business after many years of doing it like everybody else, old school. It's so powerful. You know, when you start applying, it's like bringing a gun to a knife fight. It is almost unfair. Seen material on this subject before, but never this level of sophistication or clarity. We'll be using this soon. Thank you so much for that, Alex. That's what we're trying to do, and that in and of itself is a lesson. You know, because, you know, for people at different times, different parts of the market, and this should always give hope to people in your. You know, people say, oh, there's already people serving the market. There's already people doing all of this, right? But if you can come up with a different way of explaining it, or using different examples, or using your own methodology to explain things, aka what we do here in Niche Style, guess what? You've got a unique mechanism. You've got a way of communicating with your market. That's why I'm never worried about competition for you, because you're a series of elements. You don't have to put anything on. As soon as you start putting something on, as soon as you try to pretend that you are somebody that you're not, guess what? You come across as salesy. Subconsciously, people pick that up. Whereas if you're just you, then you're just you, right? If you're just you. And that is the easiest person that you can be. All right, that is it. Oh, I'm glad you got that, Robert. Thank you so much. Again, this training and the supporting PDF and all of that sort of stuff will be available on Monday. I'll send you a separate email specifically about this, separate to our normal Friday email, because it's just going to take a little bit of processing time to get all of this stuff done. So look out for that. Look out for announcements about Copy Club. It's also Scrum Week next week for those of you who are seeing this. So awesome. But again, you'll get emails for all of this stuff. Thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I've enjoyed presenting it, because I just think it's such a powerful, like I said, this stuff is bringing a gun to a knife fight. It's awesome. With that, thank you very much, and we'll speak together soon.